Hey, what's up? It's Kevin Rogers. Welcome to Copy Chief Radio, brought to you by copychief.com. See how that works? Let's get into it. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kev Rogers here. We got a hot one today. It's Joey Percia. Do you know Joey? You should know Joey if you don't know Joey. He's got some cool stuff he's going to share with us today. Joey was in RFL, my Real Free Life coaching program. Known him a little while before that. He's kind of new to copywriting in the big picture, but he's been taking a really, cool, innovative approach to growing his business rapidly. And he's here to share with us today a lot of the ways that we can get unstuck or not box ourselves in as freelancers, as so many tend to do. So Joey, thanks for being here, brother, and sharing all this with us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited too, man. You're a guy who I like a lot.
Thanks. That's nice.
You get that a lot. You're a very likable guy.
I get that sometimes.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but sometimes.
But it's very genuine, like you're just you, man. You smile, but I know you also work hard. And like everybody, you've had your trials and tribulations in life, right? This business growing stuff is no joke, and it's not easy for anybody. I'm just curious to start before we even get into like the nitty gritty of the business stuff. What's your basic life philosophy? What's behind that smile you wear all the time?
There's a lot behind the smile. First off, I appreciate you saying that. That means a lot, especially coming from you. Yeah, man. That's hard to wrap up into a few words, but I think one of the things that has gotten me to where I am or where I'm going to go is just like the ability to eat crap and still move forward, I would say.
Yeah. They serve a lot of it out there in the world, don't they?
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, just eating that and then just chugging along.
So it sounds to me, what I hear in that is that you don't get hung up on small stuff, on petty stuff, on, some people really like drama, man. You see, and by the way, I've noticed, like, I don't go on the Facebooks too often there. It's a wonderful tool. I use it in my business, but when I do see you posting, it's always positive, It's clear that you want other people to feel good and not be petty, because there's so much of that on Facebook and social media. People just griping. Isn't it weird when somebody wakes up and decides to share every problem they've been having with everybody they know on Facebook? I never understand that as a business strategy,
Or just a life strategy.
Yeah.
Of like, yeah, I absolutely love hanging out with those people. Let's do that.
That's how you want people to show up to you, right? In the real world, go, man, I'm so sorry,
Yeah.
Oh, what do you mean? Yeah, you probably forget posting it because it's just in this moment it seemed like the thing to do. But that stuff reverberates.
Absolutely. It's funny you say that, because I think online that's definitely kind of more of the approach that I take. And a lot of people also say, like, I do share, I hate using the word vulnerable and authentic because it's such a buzzword, but I do have a lot of people tell me that they really appreciate following me because of that. And I never think about it like that. It's more like, if I share this, how can it help someone? Like, right. I don't share any of that stuff unless there's a lesson taken it away.
I think it goes down to that. I think it goes down to intent, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can read people's intent behind a post. And if it's clear their intent was to get people to go, what's wrong?
Yeah.
Or,
yep.
Oh, man. Look, if you suffer an actual tragedy and you need to feel like you need to let people know that is what it is. But you can read people's intent. And I think that's what it is with your stuff, Joey. Like, I see that your intent is to make yourself better and actually inspire other people or create, like, valuable dialogue with what you post. So good on you for that, man. Let's talk about the biz stuff. How long have you call yourself a freelance copywriter? Is that the title you're using?
I don't really use a title.
Yeah.
I did. And what I've, I guess, learned and even discovered, titles just box you into things, especially using the title copywriter, right? Like if you use that when someone's always like, what do you do? Right. And if you say copywriter, what's going to happen is immediately they start thinking about every copywriter they've worked with in the past, whether they have or haven't. So that means if maybe they had good experiences, but often I've found people have not had such great experiences.
Yeah.
So anytime you're just like, yeah, I'm a copywriter, they like without just unconsciously, people just automatically do that. And then on top of that, if they have been working with copywriters, they have an idea of what a copywriter should get paid.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you work the same way, you do different things, you do less, like they just have an idea like, no, this like copywriters get paid this much. And this is what I expect to pay you if we work together, which isn't always on par with what you can expect going into a relationship.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like just setting off with a more open-minded exploration. So if you meet somebody and you think, oh, I could definitely help them because of my copy skills, and you want to sort of explore that, I guess you just let the conversation take its natural course, right? You don't have to say, well, I do this or that. It's just, oh, really? What are you up to? And then I've always learned by asking good questions, that gets across more of your expertise than any way you could phrase it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So asking questions, and usually it ends up being something along the lines of, especially with this performance-based stuff, like it really depends on conversations, right? Because like you were saying, people view things differently. So with some people, they'll ask and you're like, well, there's not really a great name for it. I help, enroll people into like high ticket programs on a performance basis. And then some people are like, oh, what's that? And other people are like, so is it like copy? Like, are you a copywriter? Like, yeah, copywriting is like one of the few things that goes into it, but absolutely copy is a big part of that, along with, whatever else it is and kind of that sort of thing.
Yeah. Being a strategist, understanding the funnel, the avatar, all those things, being able to come in with a pair of fresh eyes, sex up somebody's, lackluster offer. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. I like that, man. So let's talk about that performance-based concept. We hear this talked about usually with somebody bragging about how they work only minutes a week and pull in ridiculous amounts of money. What's been your reality?
Not minutes a week. I still have this weird common thing. I have this weird attachment to, or just weird belief that money only follows hard work, which I know it doesn't. And I have plenty of people in my life that can attest to that. It follows value.
Right.
But, the better you get at that, the more you can kind of use that leverage to work less and still get those nice big old paychecks. So yeah, the thing with the performance-based stuff is it can work out really well, and you can also fall flat on your face, which is a reality with not only the performance-based stuff, but when you're just writing copy in general, right? Like if someone were to just hire you for a project, there's, or depending on your track record, there's a relatively good chance that might not be a huge win, depending on whether it's going to cold or back end offer or whatever it is. So with the performance-based stuff, you just take on more of the risk.
Right. So yeah, man, I hear like a willingness to fail there, which is again something. It's smart because, like you said, it's always there. And one of the big pain points for freelancers is when a client says, especially for copywriters, like, okay, well, look, I know you can't guarantee results, but how do you feel about how this is going to convert? Which is just another way of phrasing the same question, right?
Yeah, exactly.
When you put skin in the game, it thwarts all that, And so what I did was I was always sort of half performance based. I would take a fee up front just because it's the only way I could afford to give it the time I wanted to, right? And organize my calendar. And then I would take the second half of my fee based on performance. Man, when I started doing that, it revolutionized my freelancing business because it just ended that whole conversation and turned it into a positive. It's like, well, I tell you that I'll be in lockstep with you through this launch, through this campaign to make sure we're converting because my money's tied up in it too.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. So I think there's definitely different ways to structure. Like if we're same thing. I still do some product launches and stuff, and just if it's more of a front end offers, then it's not pure performance based because there's a lot more that goes into that, right? typically we do the pure performance based on more of like back end stuff. And what we'll talk about in a little bit is like kind of using assets they already have. But a point that I wanted to make on what you just said, which is really funny because I always had this weird feeling of like, if you work with someone and it doesn't work, what am I going to do? And in my experience, like I would do whatever I could to like help, right? Like, I'm like, oh, cool. Okay. Like, let's test this. Like, I didn't want to be like, oh, screw off, you're done. Like, that's it. No.
Right.
So I did that anyway, right? It's like, oh, crap. Okay. Like, let's try this. And, how about this? Like, let's give this lead a shot, or, let's try these, test these headlines or whatever it is.
Right.
Like I did that stuff anyway. And that was more of my fears around failure. It wasn't like that this campaign just isn't going to work. It was, or like that the campaign wouldn't work. It was that the campaign wouldn't work and that client paid me money that they didn't get like their money's worth. So it wasn't just like the failing part. I can deal with that.
Sure.
It was the fact that someone was just like, what the hell? Like, I just gave you all this money and it didn't work.
It's offensive. Yeah. It's like offensively bad service. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, all right, performance-based, like it fixes that, right? Because it's like, well, if we just fail, which sometimes it happens, then they're not out tens of thousands of dollars or whatever it is.
It's a step in the process, right? Yeah. And that's why I think that partnering is the way to think about it. Like, and I tell the people on the client side all the time, like, tell me about hiring a copywriter. What do I need to know? And blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, number one, it's a relationship. It's a collaborative relationship. And the more you can bring the right copywriter into your life as a partner in your campaigns rather than a hired gun, the much better you're going to do and happier everyone's going to be. Because that's the number one frustration I hear from high-level clients is, look, I can't write a $30,000 check again and have somebody hand me the copy and say good luck. Because there are people out there who that's how they operate. And I'm with you, Joey. It's like, I was always like, I was never going to turn my back on a client with a struggling campaign. It's just out of principle, So we might as well partner up. And so it's just like, it's interesting, man, because it's just a shift in perception, really. But for you, it sets a much greater criteria for who qualifies to get your time, because now you're investing in their project.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's this weird thing that automatically, when you do more performance-based stuff, even if it's not all performance, this weird shift that you work with, I would say, more qualified clients, which it is, but it's also just typically just a better client. Like, and again, you say you look at it as like partnerships, but it's just like a better human being.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're nicer. They don't treat like there's not this weird, you're my copywriter and you have to do everything that I say and you have no say. Like that stuff it's not there. Like, of course, there's going to be back and forth sometimes. Yeah. It really depends on the relationship, but there's way less of that. And it's funny because I saw it or see it in both client side and on copywriter side.
Right.
And like a lot of copywriters like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, this is what it is. And like, I'm putting my foot down and that's it, which can like it in some instances, like that's obviously very valid. But in other points, you're just like, well, yeah, but you're also like just being super stubborn. Like your ego is so big that you're just not open to other things.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Wow. That's really good stuff. We'll be right back to that conversation. I want to quickly tell you about Copy Chief, the membership, the full load, the mother load. What goes on in there? You can get your copy reviewed by working pro copywriters. We do new trainings every month based on the stuff that's proven, tested, and working best in the market today. Not just copy, Facebook ads, webinars, all the stuff that you need in your funnel to optimize your sales. You're getting it in real time from the real pros inside of Copy Chief. Go to copychief.com/join and see what we got for you. Now, back to this amazing conversation. Yeah, it's just, and, a big part of it is like you said, like you had this point of friction that I think all freelancers have. And look, there's ways to get through that. And sometimes it does need to be a one-off. when you're vetting a client or a scenario, right? There's times that's appropriate, but I just love the idea and how it feels when we just go, well, what if we didn't force this thing and we let it be organic in how friends would do this, you know?
Yeah. And that's a great point. It's like typically with when I'm doing the performance-based stuff with the client, we're starting on smaller projects, right? Like we're going into these things with less expectation, or they're going into these with less expectation. Like it's nicer with both parties. They're not stressing out like, I need this to perform at this level. And same thing, I'm not like, we need this to do this.
Right.
We're just like, hey, let's give this a shot because you're not doing anything with this and let's see what happens. Sometimes they're like, well, what are the chances? We're like, I don't know, maybe 50-50.
Right.
Which, we can kind of gauge things a little bit better. But if you go into something with lower expectations, it's so much easier to hit home runs and just to get people so excited rather than going into like a bigger project, like the first time you've ever met someone and in there being like this huge benchmark that you just have no idea what their list is like, what their traffic's like, any of that stuff. You're like, I hope maybe it works.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like a crisis situation.
Yeah.
Especially a hastily planned launch of any kind is a crisis scenario, right? It's like everything has to go right. There's stress everywhere and the stakes are high. And often expectations are very unrealistic. Again, you're talking about a scenario where you meet somebody, there's no massive urgency. It's just an opportunity for you to come into their world, partner with them. You feel like there's a good alignment of integrity and intent and go to work, man. That's a really great scenario. So tell me how these deals kind of work.
Yeah. So with my God, you hear that? It's thundering.
Yeah, I did hear that. Yeah. Sounds like you got a Florida storm brewing back there. Like
exactly. With the straight performance-based partnership stuff, what we're doing is just coming in and seeing where we can add value and use assets that someone's not currently using. So a pretty common one, like a lot of people are focused on the front end stuff, right? Like getting new leads, new buyers for the first time, whatever it is, or just running tons of traffic to this webinar. And then maybe they follow up with them for like a week or 2 weeks, maybe longer if they're lucky, and then nothing.
Right.
And like they'll throw them into the pot and hit them with an offer every once in a while, if they're lucky. So with this type of stuff, what we're doing is coming in and seeing where we can kind of find those areas that are just low hanging fruit, for lack of a better term. And most of those reasons that people aren't doing that is just because they have so much stuff on their plate, right? And they have so much stuff on their plate, and maybe they've worked with copywriters before, but they have had experiences where they have to manage them, like very intently. They have to, again, just take on another project. They have to go in and pay, like take the risk up front by paying them. They have to do all this other stuff. Whereas with this partnership stuff, we're just coming in and say, hey, I'll do everything. You don't have to worry about anything. And you just give me a cut of whatever money we bring in.
So how do you vet them for their responsibility in that? I can hear freelancers listening to this go, that all sounds great, but how do I know I don't get screwed,
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a few different ways you can do it. One is obviously vetting them really well. So talking about them, figuring out what the assets are, seeing how they handle those relationships up front, like the conversations that you're having with them, right? Like, are they showing up to the calls on time, or are they just like canceling on you and just be like, just putting it off on the side? Like, that's obviously a bad sign, just like a regular copywriting client. But if, someone the communication's good, they're getting you what you need to get them. And again, there's little touch points, right? You're just like, hey, I need this, I need access to this, or can you send me this? And if all that stuff goes well, awesome. But there's not, again, with kind of doing it on like these little test projects, right? Yeah. So it's not going to take 3-4 weeks to set up all this stuff, and you're not putting together like these crazy sales pages and doing all this stuff and then being like, oh, nothing happened. Like you didn't give me access to the list to send stuff out. Like we're getting all that stuff up front. So you don't have to worry about that. So it's way more vetting as opposed to just like, hey, I need this advertorial.
Yeah, that's smart, right? Yeah, exactly. And I think that's any time. It's the same with if there's a retainer offer. It always startles me when a freelancer says to me, "Hey, I just had a call with this client, man, and everything seemed really good. They want me to go on retainer now, like out of the gate." It's just, to me, that's a red flag, because that's what they think they want. It's like, all right, we know we need this thing. We want to find someone who sounds good and have them do it forever, so we don't have to think about it.
Mhm.
That means they want to disengage as quickly as possible from the process, and that's a red flag, right? So test projects, man, are key.
Yeah. And again, like that's one of those things that takes stress and risk off you too. Because you're just like, yeah, it's just, if you frame something as a test isn't isn't the best, because when you take tests in school, people get stressed out. But as a test project, they're like, hey, we're just going to test this thing out, not as a as a test. There's not just this big overarching, just scary cloud over it. It's just like, let's just try it.
Yeah, it's called like a discovery campaign.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a bouncy house. Yeah. So one more question, because I'm trying to read the minds of the listener here. How do you make the leap, Joey? Like, if somebody's their revenue model is they book their calendar full of clients and they rely on that fee. Yeah. Now it's with these deals, you got to take the risk up front and hope for results. How did you transition from the old model to this one?
I still take on some front end stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of just on my end of like, this would be a really cool opportunity. Like, I want to work with this person. This would be fun, or whatever it is. So I still do those projects for sure. So I haven't just strictly turned to just, performance-based backend stuff. So what I did when I was transitioning is I just did most flat fee stuff. And then what I was trying to do with the people that I was currently working with was seeing if they were open to any performance-based stuff. So if I had, in a retainer with someone, like an email thing, like, hey, would you have any interest in like dropping kind of the base of the retainer and just doing stuff on performance? So like, once we get you calls booked or whatever, just getting a fee per call booked. And they're just like, yeah, of course. Like, because it's just they're paying for the result as opposed to just being a paycheck and paying me to write emails or do whatever.
Right. Yeah, it's a smart approach. I always say, we should look to, once we get humming as a freelancer and we've got our calendar full and our client work dialed in, their next goal should be to replace 20 to 30% of our client income with alternative revenue sources, including these kinds of partnerships, one-off consultations, course sales, whatever it is. Start learning to grow an actual business rather than just a client-based business.
Yeah. So, that was like an easy transition. Was just seeing the people that I was working with already. And then if something was still a bigger front end project and like I've worked with the person before, it was just like, all right, how can we add some performance to this? That definitely came up with some people that I worked with. They're like, oh, well, we did it for this fee before when there was no performance. And I was like, yeah, it's, that we're just taking, like, I'm just taking projects on now that we have just a little bit more upside and we're willing to take the risk for that. Like, that's just what we're fitting into the calendar. And I had people who were just like, awesome, cool. And other people were like, oh, I don't think it's going to work. We're like, all right, thanks.
Right.
No problem.
Yeah.
Which is the same thing, I think, with anything. Like, right, if you're charging higher prices, that just happens. You kind of are working with just different clients as you go through. 100%.
You got to not let that box you into this idea that, oh, but I really love that client and it's predictable money. And, next thing you know, you look up and everybody else is paying twice as much as them, but you're just addicted to the relationship, right? The scenario. And, they'll respect you for moving on if they can't afford you. It's just, that was the thing you did for a time together, and good luck. Here's some names of other copywriters who might be right for you now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just kind of got to be willing to just be like, all right, this is not a great opportunity anymore.
Yeah. That's the key to any good negotiation. You got to be willing to give up the gig or the win. If you're willing to give something up, then you have control or walk away, Cool. Joey Percia, man, this was really, really cool and insightful. I want to make sure everybody knows about your book, Why Do You Hate Money? at whydoyouhatemoneybook.com. We'll add that link to the show notes. You can also go to Joey Percia, PERCIA.com. All the links will be there to Joey's world. Great guy, really great copywriter, strategist. If you are looking to bring a copywriter into your business to partner, maybe Joey's your guy. You should check him out and explore things. I appreciate you, Joey, and I hope we do this again soon.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
All right, brother. See ya. Hey, you want to be on the inside of all the best converting campaigns in marketing, the latest, greatest copywriting techniques? Find out what's really working today from people out there making it work, doing the testing, getting the results, sharing with you, reverse engineering, great copywriting, plus a whole catalog of trainings to help you do everything from write better story, better email, Facebook ads, YouTube scripts. We got it all for you inside at Copy Chief. Go check out copychief.com/join to learn how to become a member. And if you'd like my free book, The 60-Second Sales Hook, where I turned a joke formula into an irresistible sales hook that you can deliver in under 60 seconds, go to 60secondsaleshook.com. Grab yourself a free copy.